first grade. I'm so glad that you could join me for a math video lesson on time. We're going to go ahead and warm up with counting by fives, but we're going to stop at the number 60. So here we go. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. Great job. Now you might be wondering, why did we stop at the number 60? When we're in class, we usually go to 100 or sometimes even farther beyond. So I want you to put that question in your head, be thinking about why we stopped at 60, and we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the lesson. So let's jump right in. We'll start with our objective, just like always. Our objective is, I can estimate time to the hour and half hour using words like about, almost, before, and after. Now you might remember that estimate can mean guess, but we're not really using that definition of it. Our definition of it today is more like close to. We are going to be telling time close. What time is it close to? So that's what we're going to use for estimate today. So before we get started with our lesson, we're going to review some things that you've been working on with time this week. The first thing we're going to talk about are the parts of a clock. So hopefully you remember that the front of a clock is called its face, and then it has two hands. The longer hand is the minute hand, and the word minute is long, and this hand is long, so that helps us remember that the long hand tells us the minute. The shorter hand is the hour hand, and the word hour is short, and so is this hand. So the short hand tells us the hour. When we started talking about time, we started with fractions. Remember last week we were learning about fractions, and then we jumped into time and we used fractions to help us start learning about time. And we said that if we divide the clock face into 60 equal pieces, those pieces are called minutes, and there are 60 of them in an hour. So the whole hour is 60 minutes, 60 equal pieces. We also divided our clock face into two equal parts, or to halves, and half of 60 is 30. So 1/2 hour is 30, another half hour is 30. 30 and 30 together make a whole hour. And we learned that down here, the number 6, the half, we can say half past the hour. We also said that you could divide your clock face into 4 equal pieces, or quarter hours. Today, when we're talking about estimating, we're going to focus on hour and half hour. But if you get really good at it, you should be able to do it with the quarter hours as well. I have something new for you that will hopefully help make telling time easier and estimating time just a bit easier. So I've taken the clock face and I've divided it into 12 equal pieces. And I did that because there are 12 numbers on the clock. And I wanted to show you that each of those numbers has its own space that belongs to them on the clock. And when the hour hand is in that space, it's that time. So if we start with 12, because that's the top of our clock, you'll see that there's my 12. I drew an arrow from the 12 to the 1, and I colored that space pink to show you that all that space belongs to the 12. Once the hour hand hits that number 12, and the whole time until it gets to the 1, it is 12 something. That space, that time belongs to 12. And it's the same for all of the numbers. The hands travel this way. We call it clockwise. Okay, let's look at another number. Let's look at the number 8. So there's the number 8. So once our hand hits the number 8, and it goes, all that space from the 8 up to the 9 belongs to the 8. So when you're looking at the space and you're trying to tell time, just think, okay, where does it start and where does the space end? So it starts at the number and it goes to the next number. And once the hour hand hits the next number, then it's in that number's space. So hopefully that will help you if you think about space to tell time, make it just a little bit easier. So let's practice telling some time to the hour and the half hour before we talk about estimating time. Okay, so I got my clock. What time is it? Okay, so the hour hand's pointing to the 10, the 12, the minute hand's on the 12, so we say it is 10 o'clock. The hour hand is in the space that belongs to the 10. How about now? The hour hand is on the 3, the minute hand is on the 12, so we say it is 3 o'clock. How about that time? If both hands are on the 12, then it is 12 o'clock. Let's try to the half an hour. Okay, so when we start doing like half hours and other times, it starts to get a little bit tricky, and this is where knowing the space that belongs to a number is helpful. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the hour hand, and I'm going to look and I'm going to say, oh, it's in the space that belongs to the 9. Now I'm going to look, so it's 9 something. Then I'm going to look at the minute hand. It's on the 6. I know that's half past, right? So it's half past 9 or 9:30. Okay, let's look at this one. So remember, we're going to look at the hour hand. What space is it in? It's in the space that belongs to the 7. So it is half past 7 or 7:30. How about this one? Can be a little tricky. Remember, we got to look at the hour hand first, okay? It's in the space that belongs to the 11, right? So we come to the minute hand. So we know it's half past 11 or 11:30. Okay, so remember our objective. Our objective is that we are going to estimate time to the hour and the half an hour using words like about, almost, before, and after. Okay, so let's practice that a bit together. So go back to my big clock. Okay. Okay, so what time is it? Okay, so remember, we're going to look at our hour hand first. And remember, I don't want to know the exact time. I just want to know what time we are close to. Okay, so my hour hand is in the space that belongs to the 9. So I know it's 9 something. I'm going to look at my minute hand, and I'm going to see that it's a little bit after the o'clock, right? So I can say it is about 9 o'clock. See the difference? There's 9 o'clock, just a little bit after. I know it's after because I know my clock, my hand travels this way, right? And if it was here and then it had to go, that's 9 o'clock. And then it keeps going, that's after 9 o'clock. Oops, sorry, that's after 9 o'clock. So if I keep going, my hand keeps going, and do you see how my hour hand is moving in that space? So when the minute hand is moving, the hour hand is moving as well. It's moving more slowly, but it's still moving in that space. So if my minute hand goes around, now what time is it, or what time is it close to? Let's look at our hour hand. It's in the space that belongs to the 9. So we know it's still 9 something. But let's look at our minute hand. What's our minute hand doing? Our minute hand is almost to the 12 or the 0 o'clock, right? So, and our hour hand's almost to the 10. So yeah, it's pretty close to being 10 o'clock. It is about 10 o'clock. It's almost 10 o'clock. It's just a bit before 10 o'clock. And if my minute hand were to keep going, see, now it's 10 o'clock. Let's try it with a half an hour. Okay, so let's look at my clock and let's see what time it is. So look at your hour hand. My hour hand is in the space that belongs to the 3. So we know it's 3 something. So then we look at our minute hand and we see that it is 3:30 or 3:30. Okay? But what if it was here? What time am I close to? I am close to 3:30. It's still about 3:30, but it's after 3:30 now. What about this time? This can be a little tricky. So what do? We look at our hour hand. It's in the space that belongs to the 12. So we know it's 12 something. So come look at your minute hand. Come down here. It's almost to the 6. And we know when we get to the 6, it would be 12:30. But it isn't yet. It's about 12:30. It's almost 12:30. It's a little bit before 12:30. Okay, so I'm going to give you some to practice. I'm going to show you some clocks, and I want you to use the word about, just before, a little bit after. Hopefully you can say a couple different times, estimated times, when you're looking at each clock. So remember, the first thing you do is look at the hour hand and see what number space it is in. Then you're going to look at the minute hand. So when I look at this, I see that this is tricky, right? Because it's not quite to the 5. It's still in the space that belongs to the 4. So it's 4 something. But then when I go up here and I look at the minute hand, I see that it's almost to the 12. So I know it's almost 5 o'clock. It's about 5 o'clock. It's a little bit before 5 o'clock. Let's look at this one. Okay, did you look at the hour hand? Did you see what space it belongs to? Did you look at the minute hand? Okay, so you should have come up with it's about 2 o'clock. It's before 2 o'clock. It's almost 2 o'clock. Because he's still in the space that belongs to the 1, but he's almost to the 2. Okay, so you should have come up with it's about 8 o'clock. It's after 8 o'clock. It's just a little bit after 8 o'clock. Okay, so now we're going to estimate the time to the half hour. Okay, so we look at the hour hand. See, it's between the 11 and 12, so it's in the space that belongs to the 11. And the minute hand is almost to the 6, so it's almost half past 11. It's about 11:30. It's just before 11:30. How about this one? Okay, so you should have said it is about 4:30. It's just a bit after 4:30. Okay, so I'm going to challenge you as you go through your day. If you have a watch that you can set, or maybe your parents have a watch that's an analog watch that you can borrow, or if you have a clock like I do that's an analog clock, just as you go through your day, take a look at the clock and see what time it is, and see if you can estimate the time. What time is it close to? Okay. Now, way back at the beginning, we counted by fives. We counted though we stopped at 60, and I asked you to think about why did we stop at the number 60. So I'm going to ask you to email or have your parents email your answer. Why did we only count to 60 when we were counting by fives when we were warming up? It's kind of a little riddle for you. Okay, so I miss you guys. I hope you're having a great time and you're working hard and doing your very best work at home. And I'll look forward to seeing you soon in our next video.